Herkese iyi günler. Dijital dönüşüm.
Welcome again. We are talking about digital transformation and legal issues. I'm attorney Çiğdem Aygözer Öngün, and I will talk about the legal issues in digital transformation together with my colleagues. Legal is a large area of interest, of course, and also is digital transformation. So we try to have different sections here. So one of the main actors is data. Then we thought, let's start with data. And, data is the king. So it's the most valuable form of currency. So what are the reflections on the business world of this most valuable currency? It is the manager, the leader now, and the legal issues regarding data. So the defining actors in the business world and the existing dominant companies want to use data to transfer into new business sectors, especially with the outbreak of the pandemic, and to adapt to the changing lifestyle together with the pandemic. The supply has also changed and the rules of the games has changed. So at this point, I would like to give the word to PhD Çiçek Ersoy. She is a faculty member of Legal Affairs, and to the protection of the law for protection of personal data, and especially when we are talking about the competitions rules and what are the tendencies in the world and what are the changes in Turkey. Thank you very much for your invitation. Like you said, the digital transformation legal issues has to do with the competition law and agreements law, and every type of code will change. And I can say that we are maybe in the 1 or 2 decades, the most important 1 or 2 decades in legal terms, and because everything we learned up until now will change with the data is now reinterpreted by us with the onset of data or the importance of data, and the regulation of the state is been discussed more often and more rigorously. And there is another important side of this era. It's the protection of personal data and the competition law. And more than one areas of law are looking for solutions interdisciplinary, and platforms and BitEx, for example, are one of these challenging areas. So in the next 5 years, we are expecting to live in this dynamic. And I think we can go as far as to say that each and every day we will see another decision of a competition authority or another court decisions, which will come each and every day, that will lead to new discussions. For example, the decision on Facebook given by a German court will be discussed in the EU organs, and depending on on the result, we will see some changes. What was the decision. The use of personal data in digital platforms, and a company which has been which is dominant, like Facebook, for example, how do they get their information? They are collecting personal information from different sources and use this as a digital marketing tool. And this leads to the increase of their market share and market power. And they are collecting data from Instagram and WhatsApp and have a dominance in the market term. And in the terms of conditions, they have they enforce this on their users. We as lawyers who are working on the protection of personal data, we are seeing this as a problem, and this is also a problem for competition law, because the anti-competition institution in Germany says come to the ruling that this leads to a uneven competition, and said to Facebook, I want you to stop with this data usage which has been exploitive. So this is a complicated process, which is, like I said, is interdisciplinary. In the next 6 months, we will wait for the ruling and are going to reinterpret how the business models will be in the future, depending on the ruling of the European Court of Justice. And this will have also effects on the fintech, because like in this example of Facebook, we see that different giants of tech giants are also players in the finance world, like Google Pay or Facebook Pay or WhatsApp Pay, for example. These are not only working in the area of digital connection and communication, but also they are important in the finance sector. In Turkey, we don't have applications of these different finance tools, but will come in the short future. And it will, and we will see in the next few years how the data-based economy will have a structure, and this will be in Turkey years of regulations, and the state will use these regulatory tools to have in the retail sector, and there will be changes, and the state will be a big regulatory here. Then we will see these changes. Thank you very much, Ms. Ersoy, for your evaluations. And now I want to give the word to Osman Gazi Güçlütürk from the Kırklareli University Faculty of Law. He's a lecturer there. And we started with data and the law of digital transformation, and how do we see law in the age of the digital transformation and data. But together with Mr. Güçlütürk, we will talk about disruptive technologies, and this one of these technologies is blockchain. And on these blockchains we have cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, and their legal implications are important for the capital market. And we would like to hear your evaluations on the subject, on cryptocurrencies, on blockchain, and their implications on law, legal issues. Thank you very much, Ms. Ungen. The blockchain technology is, like you said, the most discussed topic when it comes to finance today. And the digital transformation of finance and financial markets is not only subject to cryptocurrency, also other factors, but this type of currencies, these types of structures, which has been come into our lives in 2009 and 2010, I'm still calling them structure. have a huge impact. And there are also some examples who are very matured nowadays. And we can see this in some countries and their legal developments. But I want to talk about today about how this could not be fulfilled in Turkey, because the authorities in Turkey and their counterparts in other countries, and also the special case for Turkey, has not been seen and taken into considerations. Cryptocurrencies has different areas of use. I don't want to dwell upon them, but they each have different financial applications. You can use some of them as money, and maybe this has not to do with the finance sector, but the monetary sector and the banking sector. But on the other hand, the capital market, there are also crypto assets who can use in the capital market, like, for example, an derivative depending on gold, or if it's based on another currency. Can we see this as a immovables? So the cryptocurrencies, we have three parts, and which are the regulators, the investors. So this will be defined by the regulators, so we can call them investors. And thirdly, actors who are developing a project here and produce a product. So the lack of the regulation is not a problem in and on itself, because the technology comes always before law. So you can always say, before we regulate, let's see where this is going. So you can start doing some analysis on some of the projects, but we see that the capital market regulators are trying to be more prohibitive, and these cryptocurrencies came to 2013, 2014, and were defined as virtual currencies, which was not correct. And then they had some circulating letters and some announcements. But we see that they always say these are speculative tools and they are dangerous, so you should avoid them. This is what capital markets authority is saying. But this has no effect on the investors of the crypto market. We cannot put this into numbers, but we see it in the statistics of AAA that the number of people who have cryptocurrencies in their hands is 2.4 million, which is not a small number for a young population like Turkey's. Although they're not fully see the content and the potential of this tool, but they are hungry for new technologies, and this is the tendency of the new generation, young generation. For example, when you look at the transactions done in 2020 and 21 for cryptocurrencies, that it's on the level of 25% of the stock exchange. So this has a tendency to reach the level or even exceed the level of stock exchanges. And the regulators don't wait to think about regulations. No, instead they say, no, don't go into this market. We will regulate it later, but up until then, wait, because it's dangerous. So I understand, of course, why these authorities are doing these announcements, because the banking authority makes an announcement or the central bank does an announcement. So they are forced to say something. And the environment where you can say, okay, let's try this or let's wait and see, did turn into chaos. So why should we do something here? There are two reasons. One of them is the main goal of a investor is to be protected by the law for capital markets and their counterpart on the banking system. So these law and regulations are put out of force because these cryptocurrencies are not seen as transaction worthy, so they are seen as dangerous, and this leads that the investors are here unprotected. So in between 2020, January 2020 or March, April 2021, we see here some developments, and those don't have a negative effect on the people. And if you see that your warnings are going unheard, then it means you should involve yourself in the market. And we see all around the world that authorities are getting involved into this cryptocurrency ecosystem. But in Turkey, the investors are not protected. And I see it every day more and more that they are doing transactions on cryptocurrency platforms on their handy phones, cell phones. So the authorities are doing nothing, and this leads to a question mark in their heads, because we've seen that the stock exchange is also open to attack. We were waiting for a regulation since April, but the new regulation, we don't have a new regulation. And there are other payment systems who are waiting in line in the pipeline in the central bank, but they are also not realized. So we are putting the investors to one side, which they said we need some criteria to protect us, also with use of the Masak authority. And so there are also some uncertainties in these regulations. So legally, there are some problematic uh, developments here. But on the other hand, these projects from this third party of this of this ecosystem is also hindered, because when actors want to make a tokenization, we cannot show them, help them, or give them some guidance on legal matters. And in one night, the central authority for the capital markets can have a ruling where they are forbid a project overnight, for example. And this leads to the usage of cryptocurrencies. And maybe some ideas how to solve these problems. There are also some empirical research, and if you haven't done any regulations, or if you had decided on one position, that wouldn't have a positive or a negative effect. But at this point in time, we've seen that these uncertainties and these fear mongering leads to serious problems, because if we want to go hand in hand with the development in this subject globally, we have to have some regulations, and we need a legal assurance, and this cannot be done by regulation between closed doors. But in the last 8-9 months, I heard from different people and companies that there are some studies for regulations, but as an academic, I cannot have access to this. And I don't think that there are any platforms who are open to cooperation. Some did, for example, for the some cooperations like the Ministry for Industry, or the Authority for the Protection of Personal Data are doing something positive. But for especially for the fintech companies and for new startups, we need a regulation platform where you can coexist and cooperate. Because when you come together with policymakers, then you have a word in the regulation which changes everything, because there is a word in payment in the central bank regulations. But to understand what this payment means, we need to talk to the president of the central bank. So for each word, for each input, you need the interpretation of the participants too. So that's why we need a platform with all the stakeholders, and to see how this will develop in the future, because there's a need.
Thank you so much, Osman Bey. So we go back to and blockchain technologies, and also, of course, chain technology has an impact on the transformation of law as well, and also another, and so we can talk about crypto assets, and another field of application is the smart contracts. And the smart contracts are not used in the capital markets, but also in many different markets as well. And so we have started seeing these in many sectors in practice. So it's an approach, and so let me call it a technological advancement as well. So when we talk about smart contracts, we shouldn't think about contracts as such. We are talking about a much more sophisticated type of contract. And then so we have a member of faculty of Üsküdar University, Attorney Bilgisu Demirel. Bilgisu, when it comes to these smart contracts, about a legal characteristic, and also I'd like to hear your views about the impact of these contracts on the capital markets. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your invitation and for your kind introduction as well. So we're talking about a data economy and also database economy. So we have the blockchain and also crypto assets as well as an integral part of this. So we have smart contracts as well. So in my speech, I will start with what a smart contract is, and then I will talk about the fields of use and also their advantages and disadvantages, and also as as those who are working as stakeholders in the field of capital markets. And so we'll talk about what we can do in order to use these tools better. And so when it comes to what a smart contract is, just like a blockchain or crypto money or crypto, we feel the need to think what money is when we think about this. And when we say what's a smart contract, first we ask ourselves what a contract is, and for what it's made for. And the most fundamental characteristic of a contract is the harmony or will. So the parties come together and say, I will send this person 100 liras, and then they will send me this good or commodity. So if you simplify it, and how can we base this on a smart contract systematic? So we talk about the blockchain technology and also crypto money technology as well. And so this smart contract in the smart contract technology, we make use of blockchains. So these are decentralized, and so these are peer to peer. So there are certain codes, and also as for the terms, and also the parties of the contracts are written as well, and also the terms of this contract are distributed to the entire structure. Although it appears to be quite simple, when you go into its details, and we see that their fields of application are restricted, or we encounter certain barriers as well. So let me start with an example from the retail industry. For example, let's talk about a basic product. For example, tomato. In order for a tomato to reach the consumer from Çanakkale, and so it goes through certain suppliers, and so let's consider that the consumer pays for the tomato and consume it. And so if there's for example, distance sale, if they're buying online, so they accept, for example, distance sales contract, or sometimes make a verbal contract as well in a smart contract, and all these are taking place online using codes. So why do we feel the need for this? Why do we use the blockchain technology and also crypto assets, instead of using the existing technology? And so why are we trying to digitize the contracts, and why do we feel the need to use codes? Is it only because it's popular, or it's a current topic? So, so we can, so we believe, because we foresee that we can proceed on a more autonomous and more secure structure. So signing a contract physically, or for example, or keeping it, instead of keeping it in the safe of a bank, or in the premises of a third party. Once this, once the parties have harmony of will, then these are distributed throughout the change, and also they're also saved by the parties as well. It is faster, and it's also more economical as well. So this is why we are opting for this smart contract as well. So the first advantage of it is speed, and the second one is the fact that they are economical, they are reliable, and also there is a certain level of autonomy as well. However, because it's a new field and it's still developing, these advantages, we see these advantages on the column, not disadvantages as well. So we said fast. So we ask ourselves if they are really fast. So if we don't have the required technological infrastructure, if our verification system is not sufficiently well established, then we can lose some time as well. For example, so when we shop, when we pay by credit card, and we can make our payments touchlessly. However, because our verification system about the smart contract hasn't get really established, then there can be delays as well. So, and we said that safety is seen one of the advantages of this as well, because the data goes to all the parties of this agreement, and it is also verified as well. So that's why we say it is safer. However, an authority, if there's a party which owns most of these parties, then this security can be manipulated as well. And then we said we are talking about saving as well, and we say that it is economically affordable. But if a sufficient level of technological investment hasn't been made, then there may be a situation where we won't be able to save on money either, as mentioned by the previous speakers. And because these pros and cons are intertwined, so the central governments and also lawmakers are tending to be more restrictive or prohibitive. That's why we find it difficult to find fields of application for this as well. For example, when it comes to the sales of a property, and so we can make these sales using a smart contract as well. After defining who the parties are electronically, then we can define. So we can use a smart contract to define what property we will sold to whom under what circumstances, but we can't because in order so the but under the current law, we need a notary public for these contracts to be valid. And so it is a sine qua non. And that's why legal regulations and arrangements should be following technology, trying to keep up with them. And also, as long as projects come out, so which will be based on the reports and analysis presented to the lawmaker, and I believe that, and for example, Arizona Transaction Act is about using electronic crypto assets being for payment purposes, or also identifying people electronically. For example, we can see this in international comparative law. However, so the use of crypto assets in payment systems, and also and also at the stage of the identity verification, we see that there is still a long way to go, and also the contracts which are signed in the banking system, and also identity verification systems, and also payment at door systems should be simplified, and also, and I believe that. I believe that smart contracts can be used in order to speed up these applications as well. And there's a need to revise all the legal arrangements about these topics as well. So what can we do in order to turn these disadvantages to advantages, and about fraud transactions, and in order to prevent, for example, credit cards frauds, and for example, if you identify the parties, and also in order to be able to catch such harmful transaction faster. And I believe that legal professionals should be using with these IT professions as well. So I believe that legal professionals should improve their, for example, technological literacy. For example, at the faculty, we didn't get a chance uh, to have classes about technology, and we need to develop ourselves in terms of our technological literacy. And I believe that legal professionals being involved in these processes would make things easier. And I'd like to say that I'm always open to working in this field. Thank you very much, Bilgisu, for all this information you provided us with. And I'd like to turn to Mr. Mete Tevetoğlu from, he is the co-founder of Tevetoğlu Law Office, and who is also the chief of department of Maltepe University, Faculty of Law, and also he's also the manager of Maltepe University Faculty of Law. So we may talk about more general titles and headings, and also some possible impacts of this on capital markets. So as I'll be giving you the word to you. So let's talk about the impact of the digital transformation on the capital markets law. And so let's touch upon those items which haven't been touched on yet. Thank you very much, Idem Hanım. And it is such, and I think it's a privilege for me to be in this Congress under your moderation. And I think a lot of labor has been made, and also being here with the team of we are together again, and also going on with this congresses, despite the barriers introduced by pandemic, is very important. So the impact of digital transformation on this capital markets law is a very broad area, and also we can talk about a multidisciplinary interaction of many fields as well, as I mentioned. So there, for example, so the regulation is abstinent in some areas, and there are some hesitations as well. And so this has been part of our agenda for a long time. However, to wrap up, so in my personal view, the world is at the beginning of a very big digital transformation. So digital transformation has not yet started, and it has been completed. We are at the beginning of a process which will last for a long time, based on my personal view. The reason why I'm telling you this, in the coming years, with the impact of these current circumstances and conditions, digital development, digital marketing, and also digital technology will transform our lives as a whole, with all the products and with all the services. And the same goes for the capital markets law, and also the capital markets as well. It is quite difficult to say things about this. However, we're working on capital markets and technology and finance. So we need to work on all these three areas so we can analyze the intersection of these fields in a sound way, and it's not something you can plan. So, for example, working on capital markets and technology and finance, and also making analysis about the products and services coming out of the intersection of these. And I think the digital world or the capital markets are not prepared for this. That's why we are facing certain hindrances. For this reason, I think we need to go. So first, we need to diagnose. We need to make a diagnosis of the situation, and then we should also engage in planning as well. So we are talking about the transformation caused by technology and digital transformation, and the process of digitalization is impacting, for example, the capital markets tools and instruments, and also they are producing some alternative tools to this, and also the new institutions have emerged, and for example, digital platforms and institutions have emerged as well. And so they are impacting and they are changing the existing capital markets tools and also instruments. Some, for example, some unregulated second-hand markets are beginning to emerge, and also they are in close contact with digital capital markets, and also the existing institutions are also being affected by this transformation, and they are diversifying their products and services as well. And also the profile of consumers and investors is changing as well. And also the investment tools are also have become digitalized, and we are going through a very big transformation, and especially in when it, so I observed that we are living the United States of 1930s when it comes to the investors of, for example, crypto assets. And so in some, um, so there's confusion here as well. Certain codes rule that investors who are investing in crypto assets are not investors, but they are consumers in the first offerings of crypto the assets, and also so the position of the people buying these first and then second are different from each other. And then, so we see that there has been a transformation in the identity and profile of investors as well. So tools, investors, and also in platforms are changing as well. The tools are being digitalized and they are being tokenized, and also the public offering tools are, for example, changing as well with initial tool offering and many others. So the capital markets and also funding tools and also funding methods are changing as well, and the institutions are changing. And also with these changing institutions, some other institutions are emerging. They are similar to each other in terms of their characteristics. However, they have different qualities as well. So there's a need for recognition as well. The investors are changing as well. We don't have the old, for example, investors in the past. For example, we don't have Turkish German workers of Turkish origin coming back to Turkey with some money in their pocket and investing in Turkey. But instead, we have investors who are following crypto assets or throughout the day. And for example, people are sending tweets, for example, to stand for their rights for a small amount. So this disruptive technologies, for example, so we were talking about 2.4 million investors in Borsa Istanbul, and also in the digital investment markets, it's estimated that there are 3 to 5 million investors. They have different profiles. For example, so when you, for example, have an account as an intermediary in Borsa Istanbul, so the procedure that you need to go through, and also the criteria that you need to meet, and also the processes in the alternative markets are so different from each other. For that reason, so when all these are taken into consideration, so we shouldn't be missing the changes caused by the digital transformation. And so the love on uh, so so I believe that so the capital markets law fails to keep up with this change, and I also admit that such an environment is making very difficult to make laws as well. And then so for example, how are you going to regulate listing or ISO or say sort of cyber security, for example, infrastructure? So people are ignoring so the importance of, for example, digital data, and also uh, so the privacy and also cyber security risks on financial and data are being forgotten about because certain negligences or at this point can have a much deeper impact as well. Smart contract is one of my personal fields of interest. Maybe I wrote an article about it about 8 months ago. So we see the integration of smart contracts from the perspective of capital markets. It's the most appropriate place is the futures transactions. So commercial exchanges have already started using them, and I believe that we should be generating this as well. That's why crowdfunding is changing its shape, and also we are lagging behind. And then, so we are just starting to understand a crowdfunding based on shares. So the initial coin offerings or fund model there are different platforms, investors, and also institutions. So we shouldn't be ignoring these changes. Digital transformation is being experienced right now, right before our eyes. And I believe that we need to understand and plan this transformation. And I believe that we should analyze it with the right tool and with the right method. So we look at the United States and Security Exchange so we take a look at the number of, for example, investigations launched by this authority, and we look at to other countries, Estonia, for example, Singapore, England, and many other countries, and also we compare them with our countries. So in order for our country to be able to protect the investors, and I think this is a very good field of competition. And so we are still pursuing success in football. And however, digital technology, I believe that we should engage in regulation and planning about the impact of these digital technologies to the whole market. So we must make sure that we don't neglect this. And if we do this, so the capital markets will become more deeper and it will be enriched as well. And I believe that we need to, if it's managed in a transparent, and it will be possible for the capital markets to be more transparent. Everybody is curious, and from financial professionals to IT professionals to insurers, from um, even retailers are engaged in some work, but there's a remarkable disinformation as well. And and I believe that the some terminologies and also glossaries should be prepared, certain plans should be made, and also short and medium targets should be set, and also some official channels should be used as well. Osman Bey says there is no regulation which creates a risk, and I'd like to say that before regulating, you need to know what you'll be regulating. You need to learn the terminology of the concept that you want to regulate. And also you need to make an impact analysis based on people and also institutions as well. Only then you can talk about regulating these markets. Uh, I believe that this is a need that cannot be ignored. Thank you very much.
Mete Bey, paylaşımlarınız için
Thank you very much, Mr. Tebetoğlu.
Avukat Doktor Çiğdem Özger Öngün, SRP Legal Hukuk Ofisi kurucu yöneticisiyim. Aynı zamanda Bahçeşehir
Şu anda. I'm in the Faculty of Management in the Istanbul Technical University, and all of what I do is law and technologies. And together with my very distinguished guests and colleagues, we talked about legal side of finance und vor allem über die, we spoke especially about the transformation together with big companies and with the structuring of competition rules and with the development of new technologies, how they change. And she gave as an example the Facebook's case in the European Court of Justice and how a problem with data protection can lead to also a problem for competition law. And it was a very interesting definition. And Osman Güçlü Türk spoke about the transformation of cryptocurrencies and spoke about the lack thereof and spoke about the importance of regulation and that the uncertainties alone are not the problems, but that the stakeholders working together with regulators are the most important part. Bilge Su Demirel spoke about smart contracts and how law changes and fits to the changing environment with finance and technology. And she gave an example about tomatoes, which went from Çanakkale to Istanbul to the end customers. And if we use this as an allegory for smart contracts, and made also a strength analysis and said was speed and there are also both sides of the coin, that there are positive as well as negative sides. And Mete Tevetoğlu spoke about how the capital markets can be used as an chance for Turkey, and that multidisciplinary studies and works had led to changes in the financial markets, and we have to take those in considerations, especially about the change of the tools like ICO, IEO, and fan tokens, for example, or the changes and transformations in the authorities and also in the profiles of the investors. There is also a large change because today we have consumers who are tweeting because they are missing 50 liras of products, and these are turning into investors. And this are the SEC usage. The Security Exchange Commissions in the USA can lead to similar approaches in Turkey and would be important in creating a better market value and for this for the preservation of the competition. Now I want to go over to our guests because we have some notes. For example, one of these notes are for Osman Gazi Güçlü Türk, but I think everyone in the round can answer. So we need a law order. You say that we need a law order that's not limiting, but opening new areas. And James Richards talked and said that even cryptocurrencies are a gamble and that the awareness is very limited. That's what he said. So Osman Güçlü Türk said, I think it's said more the same because he was more converging on this idea, but I want to give the floor to you, Mr. Güçlü Türk. Yes, thank you for this note. And I'm talking about the same issue here. The prohibiting nature had no effect on this sector, and we are working still in this sector. And the cyber world is accessible from everywhere. So then restrictions doesn't mean anything. So that's why the authorities have to shy away from restricting, but more embracing. Because like Yeshar Hoca said, that if even a 15-year-old person can know a lot about over the internet, then we have to open this sector to the sharing of information, and we need to catch up with the whole world. And I think that this subject is also in my line of thinking. Thank you. Maybe one last sentence, if you like to add something. Çiçek Ersoy? Yes, in the question there is a word, not restrictive law, but guiding law or embracing law. Each and every one of us here is one step further than traditional working lawyers, because technology is much faster than law. We as law people have to know technology in much more detail than 50 or 60 years ago. We have to be aware of all the problems that can be here, and we have to look into the so-called kitchen of the problems, so we can see the problems and can solve these with the developments in technology, so that, and also have an assessment for the future. This is one of our roles now. And all of the speeches here were very inspiring and very important. And thank you very much again for inviting me to this wonderful conference. Mete Tevetoğlu, ich werde kurz, I will talk very short, briefly, but up until the 80s, the stock exchange has been seen as gamble, because you don't have a transparent information flow. And that is correct, because you cannot see what kind of informations are there, and you are doing an investment, and this is gambling because you don't have any insight. So if we want to have a good structured and a clear structure, which is not in gamble, which has not been seen as gamble, is we should do the same thing we did with the stock exchange in Istanbul, and have transparency. We have a lot of arbitrage, for example, in the market, and arbitrage means a losing is a huge problem for a institutionalization of a market, and either stock exchange or other areas of the finance. And we shouldn't look from the competition and economy, and we should distance ourselves from gambling with a lot of transparency. The last part we spoke about, I see a picture then where you have, I saw a picture where there was a tree fell on a road, and the line that was meant to be drawn at beside the road, and that this person didn't pick the tree up and paint it over, but painted rather around, and received the "It's Not My Problem" award. And we would need here a new area where we're coming into an era where we are going to have regulations and also protect our investors. And I would like to thank you also to give me the opportunity to talk here. Thank you. And we would like to thank to our guests who have visited us and tuned in, and to the Capital Market Authority, and also to our guests that for keeping it in their time frame. Thank you very much.